What's going on, everybody? You've got the cardboard coach here with your boy, Coach Co. And team, we've got a very special guest on the podcast here today. We've got Nick. Sir, how are you doing today?
Doing great. How are you doing, Coach?
I'm so excited for people to get to know you. For those of you who don't know what Nick is all about, he is from the Break Comp Cards page, correct? I said that right?
That's correct. Yes.
I
Very
love
excited to
it.
be here today as well.
I love it. So one of the reasons why I reached out to Nick is because if you've been following this channel, you know that I care very much about education in this hobby, and I care very much about transparency. And I think that what Nick is doing has the potential to do both, and is already doing both, in fact. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I mean, not a little bit. I want to talk a lot about that. But before we
Sure.
do, I want everyone to get introduced to you. So let's talk a little bit about how Nick gets into sports cards. And then transition that into, how do we start break comp cards? So, Nick, where does your sports card journey begin?
Sure. It kind of begins as a kid in 1987, 87 Topps cards, as many kids being collecting that. My dad teaching me about baseball and all sorts of sports. Then it led into collecting in 1987. First trying to chase the Bo Jackson 87 Topps card when it first came out. Then as a 90s kid, obviously with all the inserts, early 90s, chasing like Shaquille O'Neal inserts, Jordans, all those types of cards. Then still collecting today, obviously.
Do you still have any of those Shaq inserts?
I do not. Nope. I don't have many cards from when I was a kid at all. Yeah, but I started up the collection and kind of after in my early 20s, I guess I started collecting. Took a little break like
Yeah,
later in high school years and college. Yeah.
I feel like most people do. It's normal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very common story.
Yeah.
Yep.
My question is, did you ever feel the need to double back and be like, I want to reacquire those inserts?
Yes, yeah, I did pick up a lot today. Very interested in them, especially those. I love the Stadium Club first
Beam
day
teams.
issues from like
Oh,
1993.
yeah.
So there was a time where I was trying to get those in PSA 10s, gem mints. Not easy to do with the chipping and everything, but
Yeah.
yeah, love the Pinnacle Artist Proof and museum collections from the 90s. Uh, the Griffey in particular, 94 or 95 when he's blowing the bubble gum bubble.
Bubblegum.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that. Yeah, I'm a
yeah.
big fan of
Love the inserts for the 90s.
And I love Pinnacle too, man. I'm like, it's
Yeah.
funny. People, they ask me like for one of my favorite sets are usually, and Pinnacle's got to be up there for me. I'm a big hockey guy, so like I like the team golds. But there's team
Oh
golds and
yes.
there's team golds for baseball and football too, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm.
And then right up there as well is Pacific, which again is like another company that just doesn't make cards anymore.
Right,
And
right.
I'm kind of bummed out that these guys just got pushed out of the space because they definitely paved the way for a lot of the cards that we see today.
Yeah, I mean, inserts were a big deal when they became like prominent and a chase like we have today with autographs and everything. They're the modern day hits
Yeah,
that
I
we
mean,
see
even
today.
even even with respect to like, we've seen Color Blast and Kabooms really
Uh-huh.
pop
Yeah.
recently, right? So,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I completely agree. Inserts are just the thing of beauty and have been for so long. So let's talk a little bit about break comp cards. So
Sure.
where does this start, and where does it start?
Sure. I did a tech startup roughly 2007. I started one totally unrelated to sports though. It was actually a social media site for medical professionals. Exited that a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, collecting, doing my things, and then I wanted to start something new. I saw, the market movers, card ladder, the price data category. Um, and I felt there was a need for something for the breaking community as far as price data, transparency across the board, an aggregate site to bring it in like a kayak, but for breaking, to allow the collectors to see pricing, make their choose the best price, or make a decision based on price.
Yeah, and I mean, to like the comparison between something like a kayak is, I think, a great comparison because
Mhm.
I mean, there are some airlines that are significantly cheaper and even hotels that are significantly cheaper than others. And but you kind of want to see the difference in price and is like the quality worth, do you know what I mean? Like it really depends on what you're
Yes,
looking for,
yes,
right? Like
sure,
if
yes,
you're going on like a bare bones trip, you might not need all the bells and whistles. And like for instance, like here we have like Porter Airlines, where like it's a relatively
okay,
cheap flight, or relatively cheap flight. But like you can't bring like carry-on bags, and like the minute you start doing little things like that, it like they add up. But at the same time, if I'm just going for like a quick flight, I want
sure.
to know that that option is available. So I think, especially in a time in which wax prices are up for discussion on a regular basis, I think with the I think the breaking is crucial to move that wax, truthfully, because I don't know a ton of people that are buying individual hobby boxes these days, especially when we're talking about football and basketball, and when we start to get into the higher end products, like even more so. So I think that what you're doing is wonder. I mean, I honestly, the minute I saw it, I was like, I think you hit the nail on the head here.
Yeah, I was contemplating it for 2 or 3 years. Decided to take action and do it a few months ago. You're absolutely right. Yes, very difficult to move. Especially these high end products. I'm getting ready, or I did post this morning, a few breakers for National Treasures basketball. I mean, you're looking at 12 to 17,000 in aggregate for a case. Very few collectors can afford to buy a case like that for themselves that they want to add to the collection. Not to mention the risk involved with spending all that money.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, especially when it comes to, I mean, return on investment. I mean, we know that
Yeah,
like
yeah,
and it's not about the money always, right? But it should
right.
factor in to a certain extent, right? Like, I mean, there
Yeah.
are a great deal of boxes that you absolutely skunk on. And so again, knowing, which breakers you can go to mitigate, I don't know, at least like, I mean, what's the biggest percentage you've seen difference between like the cheapest and the most expensive?
Don't really have that data yet, but
That's okay.
like for instance, National Treasures. This morning it was like lowest in aggregate for all teams. I think it was low 12,000s and up to 17,000 plus. I mean,
Okay. A
that's a
big
big
jump.
difference there.
Big difference.
Yeah,
Big difference.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, we're
yeah,
talking like almost 50%, right? Like
yeah, yeah.
that's
Those are the buy now pricings that which we're tracking obviously now.
yeah.
We plan on introducing technology, to advance this a little bit, and more real time and everything. Where I'm talking to my development team currently to develop more, because right now obviously it's just focused on price. It doesn't take into consideration like intangibles, customer service, shipping, all those sorts of things as from a breaker standpoint. Uh,
How
we
would you factor that stuff in?
um, through reviews.
Yeah.
Obviously, that has to be done in a smart way. With all the fake reviews out there that could be left. Um, but we plan on doing something strategic to introduce that, whether it's us reviewing it, my team, or we have to think through that. But
Yeah.
we have been in talks to do something like that. But yes, right now we're just focused on price. Getting the bottom price and allowing the consumer, the collector, to make informed decisions through the data that we produce. And we plan on advancing the data that we put out there as well as we move forward.
So just to clarify for everybody, is there a
Yes.
fee for your service?
No, it's absolutely free. You can, I think, it allows you to do 3 searches on Breakcom for free, and then you just register for a free account. We don't charge at all. No credit card, easy registration. Um, that's all it is. Absolutely free to use. Yes.
So where does this come from? Like why? Do you know? Like I know that you said that there's an opportunity for this, but like it's not like you're making a ton of money from this.
I'm not
And
making any money at this
that's what I
point.
mean. That's what I mean.
Absolutely
And
no money.
so and so you're
Obviously,
putting time and energy into this.
yes.
I mean, if anything, you're pissing off a lot of people who have a lot of people, a lot of, I guess, pull in this hobby. So where does this come
Yes.
from? Why?
Yeah. Yeah. I have received. I guess I wouldn't say angry, but they weren't with it type of messages. But the positive message has far outweighed that by far. I mean, it's just a few that I've received that weren't positive. I just feel there's a need for this in the hobby, transparency through pricing for breaking wax prices.
I mean, I can appreciate that, man.
Yeah,
Like, and I
and
can go for it.
yeah, we're tracking pricing on many different platforms as well, websites, uh, Facebook groups, Instagram accounts, whatnot, Fanatics Live, uh, kind of all across the board.
How do you get access to all that data?
Um, I'm not going to go into the
Okay,
technology
yeah,
or
yeah,
anything,
that's
but
cool. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah, we're able to access all that data.
that's
Yes,
wild. Okay, all right. I mean, I don't even
and we
know.
plan.
I don't know a ton about technology anyway, so
Yeah,
it
yeah,
would have been a tough explain. But I mean, the
yeah,
fact that you were able to kind of sift through so many different data points, and it's not just the buy it now on their websites, or like, and that's important because I mean, I'm sure there's different pricing on different platforms, and especially when it comes to, I mean, when you need to move a box versus like a box is relatively hot or whatever the case may be. Have you seen some of the pre-sale site pricing for Topps Chrome Update?
Yes, I actually put that out this morning for Breaker's Delight and also Jumbo. Plan to go live with pricing on Hobby later on this evening. Yes.
You are on the ball, my friend.
Yeah, yeah, I'm personally excited for that product as well. Personally, I don't break or buy into breaks because of I don't want a conflict of interest or anything here. But yeah, I'm excited to see that product, especially those MLB debut patches. I'm really into the way they look. I think Fanatics did a tremendous job with the design of those cards.
I think they did a tremendous design or
Yeah,
tremendous design, did a tremendous job, not only in the design but even the execution. Right, the fact that
yeah,
I mean
yes,
they realized that baseball doesn't really have like a true patch auto,
right,
like,
yes,
and so from this point forward, they're going to have essentially a moment in time from their first at bat, essentially. And I think that I mean, we've already kind of seen, like, I don't know if you saw that David Adams put out a $150,000 bounty for
yeah. I
the
just saw that this morning. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah,
yeah
yeah,
for the Anthony
yeah,
Volpe. So
mhm,
I'm curious to see how that might influence
yeah.
wax prices. And I'd be also curious, and maybe you'd be able to do that. So when did you post the Breakers Delight information? Because like I assume that after
Yeah.
that bounty, that prices are going to change. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yes. Yeah, we'll be doing updates tomorrow on the pricing
woo,
as well. Yeah. We posted it probably maybe an hour or two before that bounty went out, and right around they don't those products aren't reflected post bounty. It wouldn't be reflected as that. And I on another going back to what you were talking about the debut patches. Did you see that video that Fanatics put out yesterday with
no,
Griffey's first MLB debut and Harper and everything? Such a cool video. And then you think of these players making their MLB debuts. I can't wait to see the Ellie De La Cruz in the future. I mean, the Volpe's going to be sick as well, though. Just so
Yeah.
excited to see these.
Yeah. I mean,
And with
it's
the gold around the patch, they just nailed it. I think it has that National Treasures Panini flawless type feel as you get from football and basketball.
yeah, I agree with you. And a lot of people were wondering, especially when Topps took
Mhm.
over, and essentially they're about to take over
Yeah,
every license in the next 2 or 3
yeah,
years.
hmm
A lot of people were wondering what Topps can do because they don't really have like an ultra high end market like Panini
hmm
does, right? Like
yeah.
they have cards that are worth significant amounts of money, but they don't really have like a true like upper echelon like national
You're right.
treasures or
Yes.
flawless, right? So
Mhm.
I think that I mean it's very interesting that they're putting this into like a Topps Chrome update though. Do you know what I mean? Like that's another thing that I
Yeah,
find very intriguing because Topps Chrome update was typically a set that didn't really do particularly well.
yeah. You don't really think of thicker patch cards with Topps Chrome, obviously. Yeah, I thought it was an interesting choice as well. Thought it might go kind of the dynasty type route for the
Yeah.
baseball. Um, but yeah, you're right. They don't really have a high end type of product.
Well, there's literally a
Uh,
hundred and fifty thousand
let
dollar
alone,
bounty in a
yeah,
set that
mhm,
really never moved off the shelves now.
yeah, yeah.
So it's
Definitely
very
got some attention by introducing that into this product.
yeah. And I mean you got to start wondering like are these bounties coming from David Adams themselves? Are they coming from maybe Tops?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, man. So talk to me a little bit about what does your collecting journey look like right now? So obviously, you said you can't get into breaks. Were you getting into breaks prior to that, like prior to starting this up?
I wasn't into it heavily, but yes, I did. In the past few years, I did get into breaks. Best pull was probably from I don't know what year it was. It was probably 2019 or 2020 that I actually hit it, but it was 2018 choice Luca the red auto, which was cool.
That's not
That was early on, so
that's not
uh,
too bad.
yeah, yeah,
Did you
yeah,
hold that or did you sell it?
yeah. I still have it today. Yeah, yep. hmm
Wow, man, that's not too
Yeah,
shabby.
yeah,
And
yeah.
those boxes weren't that expensive back then.
They weren't cheap. They weren't cheap. It may have been after 2019 or 2020. It was probably pre-pandemic though. Yeah,
That is,
they were starting to get a little bit expensive, not peak of pandemic expensive or anything like that.
you never felt the need to move that card, eh?
I put it up for sale. I didn't get what I wanted. Just because you hit that out of a pack and everything.
Yeah,
You know, there's kind of a connection. You don't want to let it go that soon. Got a PSA 9 on it. Unfortunately, didn't give the 10, but
that's
I it
okay.
looked like a 9 to me. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I
yeah.
mean, not to mention, like, you mentioned, I mean, not to mention, you mentioned, what am I doing right now? You mentioned the connections to the cards. I mean, I think that's important too, right? I think that a lot of it gets lost when it comes to like dollars and cents.
Mhm.
And I mean, I wonder, as we start to see even reviews on your page, as you start to create more and more of an interactive experience,
Sure.
if the experience with the breakers justifies some of the increases in or the discrepancies in prices.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting to see. Yeah, that's why I want to introduce other factors. I've been getting a lot of feedback, which I jot down every time I get feedback, whether I like it when I first hear it or not. Maybe I'll like it and want to introduce it later on. But yeah, for everybody listening, please DM me on Instagram, cards. Would love to hear feedback, or you can email me at contact@breakcomp.com.
Beautiful. What is
Yeah,
your
yeah,
collecting?
love getting feedback. Yeah, I really do on what the because I'm not the one using it. The collectors are using it. Breakers are using it to some degree, obviously as well. Kind of for free advertising. So I want to hear feedback from both sides. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's
and
important.
I have been getting feedback as well. Yeah,
I think keeping an open dialogue is important. I think that that's kind of like
agreed.
what we need most in this hobby. I think a lot of times criticism kind of gets pushed under the rug and that doesn't really create a scenario where we can really thrive in this new, as we move forward into whatever's left over from this pandemic boom.
Right.
I think, how do you feel about the current state of the hobby?
Well, obviously, I don't like the falling prices because I like to buy around what I've had. Obviously, it's good and bad. Obviously, you can pick up for a lot cheaper what you want because I like buying single cards.
Yeah,
Obviously, it is overall. I feel there is doom a doom feeling in the hobby, with the falling prices. But you got to look what's out there. See what's going on at shows. I don't really attend many shows, but I see what's going on obviously through social media on the people at the shows. By the way, nicely done at the show over the weekend with
appreciate
the
it.
Bork interview. By the way,
Appreciate it.
yes.
Yeah,
Um, but I'm positive about this, man. I love the cards. You know,
I'm too. I mean, I'm extremely
yeah,
bullish on the hobby. I think that
yeah,
I although individual cards, some of them, I mean, maybe even most of them will go down over the course of the next few years, perhaps.
uh-huh.
I think at the end of the day, and as someone who just attended a show, the biggest show
Yeah.
in
Tell me
Canada.
about it.
Yeah,
How was it at the show?
yeah. So I mean, I literally just attended the biggest show in Canada,
Yeah.
and it has never been busier. I can tell you with 100% certainty that I've never seen more people attend a card show in Canada. Like the expo, I've been to every single one in the last 3 years, and this was by far the biggest. They
Wow.
extended the
Great to
halls, so
hear.
they added another section, and they could have added a second one or a third one. Like it was busy. Most of the vendors I spoke to had pretty good shows. People were buying. I thought that people were going to be mainly trading. There was some trades going down, but it seemed like people were buying. The one thing I will note, and it was actually kind of cool to see, and even here, a lot more people were buying PC stuff. And so,
Yeah. Okay.
people talk a lot about buying PC stuff, and usually they're saying like it's like ultra modern and they're just going to hang on to it basically until there's a
Yeah.
bit of a bit of a run up and then no longer PC stuff, right? But
Sure. Yeah.
I saw people tap into like true PC items. Like, and I know that because I know these people and I know
Okay.
what they like. So I saw a lot more people even jumping collectible classes. So,
Oh yeah. Wow, that's interesting.
people who I know who are predominantly hockey cards were buying a little bit more mem. Um,
Okay.
and so I think that this next stage of the hobby is perhaps more fortified now than ever. And I think that the people who stick around are going to truly collect for the most part, especially as
Yeah.
prices start to come down on things. People are going to get squeezed out. There's a lot going on in the world economy,
Yeah.
global economy,
Yes. Yeah.
right? So I mean, the people who were collecting and will continue to collect, those are the ones that are truly about collecting. Now, that's not to say there's not going to be opportunity for things to go up and things to go down. But what this weekend showed me was that collecting is 100% here to stay. And so, you're usually I can pinpoint what people are looking for at a show. Like you can go into a show and be like, okay, like
Mhm.
people are going to be looking for Joe Burrow or Trevor Lawrence or, down here it's like Austin Matthews but
Okay.
people were buying really whatever they felt like. And every single dealer I spoke to, they were like, I'm just selling a bunch of random stuff, to be honest. And so
Yeah.
I, I,
Okay.
I really,
Interesting.
yeah. So I really I actually like that dynamic. I think that it means that we're getting outside of this whole herd mentality. Everyone needs to own the same cards and
Yeah. Yeah.
because that's I think the diversity in collecting and finding unique items is like what gives them value in the first place. Like
Absolutely.
but
Yeah. The chase.
before we had
It makes it
comps,
fun.
before we had pop reports, like
Yeah.
it was the acquisition part that was like that's what makes it so enticing. And I think a lot more people are leaning into stuff like that. So I think that the hobby is 100% here to stay. As if I mean, anyone needs to say that out loud, but I did.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and I think that based on what I saw this weekend, it is more prominent than ever, especially in Canada. And it really just comes down to like what this state of transition looks like. How does your collecting changed over the course of like the start of the pandemic until now?
Sure. Yeah, I pre-pandemic, I was a lot more into game used type memorabilia, and I moved a lot more back to cards during the pandemic.
Really?
Actually, I think getting into a few breaks kind of did that, and speaking with friends, they kind of got me back into cards in a way, or a lot more. Um, Love Jordan cards, for my PC. Always looking for Giannis cards. Um, outside the About an hour and a half away from Philadelphia, and so there's a lot of Philly type cards. I PC Donovan McNabb, Randall Cunningham, Ryan Howard.
You got the
Some
cool stuff, man.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
I'm
l-
just starting to collect those guys. Uh, you know, thinking back to the childhood and everything and teen years, yeah, wanna try
I
to pick
love
up some
that.
more of those players too. Yeah.
So you jumped back into the hobby essentially because of breaking then,
I wouldn't
or
say I wouldn't say jump back in. I was always in it, I got back in
yeah.
it, around 2000, 2001. Um, cards here and there, but I was more into memorabilia, really into or game used memorabilia, especially like game used home run balls. But yes, maybe a year or two pre-pandemic, I got back into cards, heavily buying that. Uh, uh, Not so much game used memorabilia as much anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I said that not because I'm like trying to belittle your card experience, by the way. Like I'm not like I'm saying that because it's kind of
I didn't think that
interesting.
at all.
Yeah, yeah. I'm okay. I'm just making
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
I'm interested because I mean, you are essentially who you needed. Like you're essentially becoming who you needed when you came in, like when you
yeah,
jumped into the
yeah.
card space, right?
Uh-huh.
Like and
Yes.
and I find that to be super admirable because
Mhm.
like we all can remember who we were when we jumped back or when we jumped back in. I'm just gonna call it jump back in, okay? Or when
Mhm.
we went full tilt into it, whatever the case may be, as we went through our learning process. And I mean, you've essentially built out a system that helps that version of you who was super interested and like kind of like on the outside looking in
Yeah.
and perhaps probably overpaid for like a few breaks or you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
um to have the necessary tools to figure out. I also think your lists expose people to breakers that they might have never known existed, which I think is like
Absolutely.
an
Yes.
underrated
Absolutely.
feature as well, right? Because
Mhm.
if we think about the everyday person, maybe they find a video of like a big hit and then they kind of glom onto that breaker and consuming that breaker's content, you're not really going to get any other breakers on that person's page, right? So like
That's
you would
right.
have to actively seek out other breakers. And so with your page, you essentially at the very least show like 10 breakers usually, right? And
Yes.
and
Yeah. At minimum. I mean, for it can go up to 50. I guess it was for Bowman Chrome few months or maybe a month ago. It went up to
well, that's
that
what I
much.
mean,
But yeah,
right? So you have
it's at
access
least
to
20 usually. Yeah.
so many different
Yes.
breakers you
Absolutely.
otherwise wouldn't have known. So I think that that's another underrated feature about what you're doing.
Yeah, and yeah, the breakers are very appreciative, as well to get their name out there. Some smaller breakers as well. Yeah, I obviously don't show favoritism. I'm strictly looking at numbers. That's all I'm doing. Yep.
And that's what's even more admirable
Yes.
about you, Nick. So
Yeah. Yeah.
if you
I have
wanted,
no.
go for it.
Yeah. I have no agenda, or bias towards any breaker or anything like that. Strictly looking at the numbers here.
If you had to tell the person at home listening to this right now,
Mhm.
what they could do on their end to help either the hobby or to help you get more information or to in order to provide that to other people, what would you suggest?
Sure. Well, obviously, I want you to go to breakcomp.com to take a look at all the pricing, all the search capabilities that we offer for free. Again, nothing to lose there. Yeah, I'd like all the collectors out there and fellow breakers or other breakers to tell one another about what we offer to them for free, just to expand the breaking community and bring make people aware, collectors aware of what we're trying to accomplish here.
Awesome. Uh, Nick, man, I want everyone to reach out to you. I want them to follow you, your collecting journey, your the content creation journey. Where
Mhm.
can they get a hold of you if they have any questions, if they have feedback, if they just want to follow along, if they want more information on breaks?
Sure. Yeah, go to breakcomp.com, breakcomp.com. You can find me on Instagram at breakcompcards or email me directly at contact@breakcomp.com.
Love it.
I want the feedback, all feedback. Come on, bring it my way.
I love it.
Want to make it as good of an experience for everybody.
Perfect. The kayak of breaking. Nick, thank
That's
you
right.
so much
That's
for
right.
joining the podcast today, man. Team, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, Cardboard Coach. Please go check out Break Comp Cards, breakcomp.com, so you can figure out exactly what you're paying and how that looks in terms of market pricing. For now, Coach Co and Nick from Break Comp are out of here.